Welcome. You're watching The Big Question. I'm Tamanna Inamdar. Days after India showcased its military and diplomatic prowess in the wake of the Pahalgam terror attack, which killed 26 innocent Indians, and the subsequent Operation Sindoor that followed, a new front is opening up. Not on the battlefield, but through the power of the Indian people. Passports and wallets. And now India is looking to make use of its soft power to hit backers of Pakistan and Pakistan-sponsored terrorism. Calls for boycotting Turkey and Azerbaijan have taken center stage after the countries expressed its outright pro-Pakistan stance following the Indian Armed Forces strikes on 9 terror sites in Pakistan and Pakistan-occupied Kashmir. Not just this, Turkey also supplied drones to Pakistan, which the country used to target military installations in India, all of which were thwarted by Indian forces. Incidentally, Pakistan Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif was also in Turkey when the Pahalgam terror attack took place on April 22nd. It is now due to this stance of Turkey that Indian citizens, including politicians and actors, are urging Indians to boycott travel to Turkey, and the impact is already visible. NDTV Profit has learned over 50% of bookings to both Turkey and Azerbaijan from India have been cancelled. In the past 6 days, travel companies have joined the movement by pausing bookings to these countries, citing national sentiments. Travel platforms like EaseMyTrip, Exigo, Cox & Kings, Go Homestays have all either paused or suspended flights and hotel bookings to Turkey and Azerbaijan. In a strong gesture, Goa Villas announced that they will stop offering their accommodation to Turkish nationals due to Ankara's non-cooperative stance.
Tour operators and online travel agents are seeing mass cancellations of tours to Turkey and Azerbaijan after these countries publicly supported Pakistan in its conflict with India. In just 6 days, over 50% of the bookings to these destinations have been cancelled, with EaseMyTrip reporting 22% cancellations for Turkey and over 30% for Azerbaijan. Now, these cancellations follow a travel advisory issued by the platform on May 9th, urging travelers to avoid non-essential travel to these countries. Other agencies like Exigo, Cox & Kings and Pick Your Trail have also suspended new bookings, and smaller operators are also seeing significant decline in bookings as well as cancellations.
The consequence of this boycott could be severe, as Indian tourists are a key pillar of these nations' tourism sectors. For example, in 2024, 3.3 lakh Indians visited Turkey compared to 1.19 lakh arrivals in 2014. In fact, Turkey's tourism revenue reached an all-time high of $61.1 billion in 2024, and Indians have contributed a significant chunk. According to Traders Association CAIT, Indians have contributed $291.6 million to this tourism revenue. For Azerbaijan, the numbers are even more striking. From just over 4,800 Indian tourists in 2014 to nearly 2.4 lakh Indians visiting the country in 2024, with a spending of roughly $308.6 million. So a full-blown boycott by Indian tourists could bleed these economies. And it's not just tourism. The pushback is widening. The X account of Turkish broadcaster TRT World has been withheld in India. Trade with these countries is also being hit. From marble yards in Udaipur to the fruit markets of Pune, traders are saying no to Turkish imports. The Udaipur Marble Processors Association, for example, has called for a total halt on marble imports from Turkey, which currently is India's largest supplier of marble, worth over 2,500 to 3,000 crore rupees annually. Meanwhile, in fruit markets, Turkish apples have been replaced by domestic produce. India shares a strong business relationship with both Turkey and Azerbaijan, with trade ties worth over $12 billion. But now, amidst a national mood of anger, the big question we're asking today, is it time for India to use the might of its tourists and traders? I'm speaking today with Rajiv Chandrasekhar, former Minister of State and presently President of BJP Kerala, Jyoti Mayal, former President, Travel and Tourism Association, and Sanjay Panda, former Indian Ambassador to Turkey. So welcome to all of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us. Mr. Chandrasekhar, I'm going to start by asking you the question that, we're all thinking of. What's amazing about what we've seen right now is that there is no official call to say, don't go to Turkey. This is happening voluntarily. The number we've reported, 50% bookings cancelled in the last 6 days, is happening with people coming out spontaneously to do this. My question is, should tourists be involved in what is happening geopolitically, and especially with what we've seen in the last few days?
No, look, I certainly believe that the boycott Turkey movement is a real one, and it is a very legitimate expression of by the people of India on what Turkey has done in support of a terrorist state like Pakistan. Look, every rupee spent by an Indian adds value to the economy that he or she is spending it in, and certainly we don't want our hard-earned rupees and hard-earned incomes to be spent in a nation that is a proxy supporter of a country that is clearly aiding, abetting, and encouraging terrorism against India and Indians. The 26 people who were brutally killed in Pahalgam, are not some academic, intellectual debating issue. These are real people whose families have been really harmed and hit. And therefore, any country today, any institution, anybody who today comes out in support, albeit subtle, albeit indirect, of a nation state like Pakistan that is, taking innocent lives, really brutally killing innocent Indians, I think should be boycotted. And that is a legitimate expression of our dislike, of our rejection of this type of partnerships in the world. We want civilized countries who all equally condemn terrorism and any such cruelty and evil against innocent people. So I think this is legitimate. This is very, very legitimate. And in my opinion, it needs to expand and grow. And countries like Turkey that aid and abet Pakistan must be outed.
When you say the movement needs to grow, in what sense? So, because this is a movement of the average Indian saying, I don't want to spend my hard-earned money and fund a nation that is coming back and doing this, supporting the enemy, and not just with statements, with machinery, with drones. Do you think that there should also be a diplomatic stance from our end? Should this extend to business ties?
I speak, on my own behalf, and I certainly will not. I have long ago stopped using Chinese products, and then I speak for myself as an individual. And I say, I think this is not a time for any Indian, any right-thinking Indian, to be engaged with anything remotely connected to Pakistan or Pakistan's ecosystem that aids and supports Pakistan. And Turkey is squarely in the center of that, when they are the ones who are replenishing Pakistan's drone fleet. They are sending ships and aircraft, as is reported in the media, and they are running this proxy battle against India. And frankly, Turkey has had a long record of needling India in international forums and supporting Pakistan. So there is no need, in my opinion. I don't say that we should be hostile towards Turkey, but certainly there is no justification for the hard-earned rupees of Indian families and Indians at large to be spent in Turkey and to help the Turkish economy. Instead, there are so many other countries that are supportive of India. There are so many alternate tourist destinations. There are so many other business countries that are in Asia. There's Indonesia, there is Thailand, there is Sri Lanka, there is Nepal. There are so many other countries that we can go for both business and pleasure. So I think that is the clarity of thought that Indians are beginning to wake up to. We saw this in the context of Maldives. We are seeing this in the context of Turkey.
Good point on Maldives, because we saw a similar thing playing out, of course, not in this extent. Here it's blatant with what Turkey has done. It's truly, when you see the might of the Indian tourist, and the world can feel it.
Tamana, we are the fourth largest economy in the world. We are a very significant outbound investing nation. We are a very significant inbound investment destination. And so therefore, nobody needs to tell us that we are welcome. I think we know that. I think over the last 10 years, a lot of hard work has gone into making India what it is today. So nobody needs to tell us how great we are or how big we are or how important our rupees are. We know that. The issue is not how important our rupees are or how important our tourists are. The issue is who do we selectively choose to invest our rupees in, to spend our rupees in. And that is the crux of the issue. It's not about whether Turkey's Department of Tourism tries to separate itself from the Turkish Ministry of Defense or the Turkish Foreign Ministry. That is certainly not the issue. The issue is we should, as Indians, spend our money, spend our rupees, invest in, welcome investments from nations that are aligned to our civilizational outlook, aligned to our worldview about having peaceful coexistence, saying no to terrorism, saying no to war. So this is our value system, and therefore it is an absolutely reasonable proposition to put forward that Indians who believe in this should look for partners where the money is spent, money is invested, or we seek investments from and partnerships from countries that believe in the same values.
It's an important concept to understand, because the point being made is that there has to be an economic price for your actions diplomatically and globally as well. Do you think that that economic price should extend to Indian industry? For example, there are some companies in the tourism sector saying they won't provide hotel bookings and flights for Turkey, and quite a few examples of that from smaller industry coming in. Do you think that needs to be extended?
I think industry will participate. I don't think today, I mean, I know for a fact the last 48 hours, the amount of goodwill that messages that I have received from youngsters, youth in Kerala, all across the spectrum, across every community, across every religion, saying that we are behind India, we are behind the Indian leadership, we are behind and supportive of our armed forces, is absolutely inspiring. I can tell you that the feeling that India today must stand up and assert its rights, its right to a peaceful coexistence in a peaceful world, is an absolutely deeply felt feeling. Whether it's business, whether it's a student, whether it's a housewife, this is a feeling that is widespread, and nobody should underestimate this. Certainly not countries like Turkey or Pakistan. This is a very deeply held emotional feeling by Indians that while we work hard, while we build a better future through hard work and not harming anybody, there are forces out there that are determined to harm us for no fault of ours. And that is not something that is just an academic issue for industry organizations to debate or discuss. This is an emotional feeling that every Indian feels, and that will, according to me, while nobody has come out and said this, this will cut across industry, this will cut across investment, this will cut across tourism, this will cut across all types of bilateral and including friendly relationships between people who happen to be friends, Turkish and Indian. I have a few Turkish friends whom I've known for many, many years. And I can certainly tell you that yesterday I messaged one of them and said, this is not on. And so it is an emotional feeling when 26 people are brutally killed, Tamanna. This is not some, outlier sort of an issue. This is a very deeply emotional moment for India.
I think it's also making it clear, are you a friend or an enemy? You can't have it both ways. Thank you so much, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, for speaking with us. Just by the way, the bilateral trade between India and Turkey in 23-24 was about $10.43 billion. Our exports to Turkey are higher. So we have a trade surplus right now of nearly $3 billion in India's favor. So that's to be kept in mind as well. Ambassador Panda, I'm going to come to you first, because this is a tricky terrain. While the national sentiment right now, the outpouring is very clear, and these are again individuals. I mean, these are not numbers that you can cook up, right? You might have a couple of companies coming and saying that we're suspending flights or we don't want to give bookings. But if half the bookings that are there in the system are cancelled in 6 days, this is the average flyer saying, no, I don't want to go to a country that's providing drones to the enemy against my armed forces. Do you think that this is something that can extend further, or this is something that typically would blow over?
Tamanna, I was very carefully listening to Mr. Chandrasekhar. You see, what he was saying was echoing the public sentiment after this barbaric act in Pahalgam. So there is, it's a fact that at this point in time, Turkey has crossed several red lines. But having said that, so far as the government is concerned, I mean, we should not go ahead and have a knee-jerk reaction. I mean, it has to be very well thought out and calibrated. You see, where diplomacy has to take center stage. I mean, this is the job of the diplomats who have to be present. We are not cutting up the relations. So one thing is clear, the government doesn't come into the picture. If there are public sentiments, but those have to be respected. But you have to understand something, that so far as Turkey is concerned, I mean, it is our relations with Turkey has gone through a roller coaster rides. I mean, be it on the question of Kashmir, but it is Pakistan. I mean, the point which we have tried to explain to Turkey that, look, if it is a bilateral relationship, it has to be strictly bilateral. You cannot have or look at a country through the prism of a third country, as Turkey does. Looking at India through Pakistan doesn't help. So at this point in time, to answer your question, I feel that at this point in time, extending it beyond what the people are calling for, or to take it to the level of government's intervention, is probably would be
no, but can I ask? But can I ask why? Because you know we're in a world where trade is a weapon, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tariffs are a weapon. And, you know, a lot of the lines have gotten blurred, Ambassador Panda. You have Donald Trump standing there and talking about the ceasefire in the context of trade, which, of course, the Indian government has made it very clear that was not the case at all. But why this segregation then? If at some point we will have to have this conversation with a trading partner, right? And
Absolutely.
with Turkey, saying that what's going on?
Trade is only one part. I mean, there is an investment part also. There is so much of Indian investment which has gone into Turkey, and Turkey's investment which has come into India. Now, so far as, you know, Turkey's strength, for example, in the infrastructure sector, when the Atal Tunnel came about, Turkey had a big role. In fact, they received a lot of accolades for implementing the project. Part of the project. So what I am trying to say, there are other ways of handling this. For example, there are economic, there have to be staggered economic strikes on Turkey, not a full embargo. You know, that doesn't serve our long-term objective at this point in time. Popular sentiment is in one place. For example, I mean, if it is any infrastructure project in India, I mean, probably we could say that, okay, Turkish companies are debarred from participating, I mean, citing security reasons. So basically, we have to make our intentions very, very clear. And that is very important.
Exactly my point. The intentions have to be made clear, and not just by individual Indians. Individual Indians will do what they do. Some might decide to cancel their trip. Some might say, hey, maybe prices become lower. And, you know, it's at the end of the day, it's a voluntary action. How do you look at it, Jyoti Mayal?
Going forward, I would also say, you know, a lot of things. Like, see, I truly believe that intersection of tourism and diplomacy is often, you know, underestimated, you know. I think that's always the case, and outbound holds very strong deliverable leverages which we should be using going forward. You know, after this Operation Sindoor, we realized that how close Turkey is, and not with Pakistan and not with us. And I think that comes as a great shock, because I think post-COVID, we were the ones who actually got them back onto their feet. Not only them, also Azerbaijan, like you stated, and, you know, our, you know, the business that we've done with Turkey outbound last year is only around 33,000, you know, 330,000 people, like you just said. And the impact of the trade and the investments flow, like Mr. Panda just said, has been so much strong. So I think the basic sentiment that comes out again is that people need to feel safe where they travel. And that's the first thing that comes into things like this, which happened. And of course, we saw that in Maldives, that suddenly they got a lot of cancellations the way it's going currently now. We hear a lot of groups going out. Why would I travel to a country where I don't feel safe? And why would I recommend as a travel agent to my client to go to a particular country where my sentiments are not strong with them? And I know that they are not in favor of India. So I think those are the first few things. Yes, Mr. Panda was very right to say, diplomacy and sentiments are two different things. Trade and inflow and outflow has to be balanced and has to be seen. And let's leave it to the politicians to do that. But as sentiments of the people, I think we need to stand strong to it, to say that we are the ones who've helped you all the times. We are the ones who've seen the rise in your infrastructure because of us. We have seen the business and trade go because everything is interdependent on tourism. So I think that is the main crux of the people. The sentiments have been heard very strongly.
No, I'll tell you what my question is. My question is that yes, a few people will cancel their bookings. They'll cancel it for some time and then they maybe start traveling again. See, we saw the same thing happening in Maldives as well. Once that wave comes down, it does. A real action will not come from individual tourists. It is an outpouring. There is no doubt. But there has to be more, perhaps,
I agree too.
If you actually want to send a message.
It has to be, but then this needs to come from the political decision makers, because I think that's most important. Because if we go soft on those decisions, people are going to come back for sure. Because we also believe in one way that, tourism is about people-to-people connect, and it can overcome borders and it can create peace going forward. But those are the things that on a broader perspective and a stronger perspective needs to be looked into politically. We as an organization and we as an industry quickly react to it, and we always stand by the government to say that, we are not happy about this. But the way forward has to be taken by them, and it has to be seen how we can benefit or how we can actually make it a no-no and not a winning situation for the other countries who are not with India at this moment. So I think that is the main crux of the thing. Yes, memories are short, and if things start getting normal, people start forgetting.
My point is, okay, I agree. And kudos to whoever is feeling that sentiment, and what we are all looking at collectively, if it's influencing your travel decisions, that's a great thing. My question is then, how can we make that voice heard? Ambassador Panda, I'm speaking to you in the context of Turkey, but most of the defense mechanism was supplied by China, more than Turkey.
Tamanna, that's basically the point that I also wanted to make. From Turkey, it has not been, nothing has been gifted. The drones were pure commerce. I'll give you an example of Turkey trying to mediate between Russia and Ukraine. And Russians thought that Turkey was basically singing their tune. And the very day that Putin and Erdogan had this meeting, the very next day, Turkey sold drones to Ukraine. So these are commerce. So don't mix with that. And these 400 drones which came onto India from Pakistan soil were not gifted by Turkey. I can assure you those were sold by Turkey. Anyway, that is besides the point. I wanted to underline the fact that at this point in time, there cannot be business as usual. Let us all accept there cannot be business as usual. Having said that, I entirely agree with Jyotiji when she says that, the people, their sentiment, their decision, whether to travel or not to travel have to be respected. Yes, again, you are right. After a few months, our memories are short, people may again try to visit the beautiful locales of Turkey. But I also wanted to tell you that you may talk about 330,000 Indians and how much they are contributing to the Turkish economy. Let me tell you, all this money actually doesn't go into the Turkish economy. Half of it are fed into the different companies who are globally present and also many in India. So this is not going to hurt Turkey. It will, but not to the extent that we are thinking of. So there are other ways of handling it.
But that one minute, that point you're making is correct, but that's true for travel to any international destination, right? If you are booking a national carrier or an international carrier, you are paying the airline. If you're going to a chain hotel, you are paying that chain hotel and their headquarters maybe in the United States or UK or India or anywhere else. If you're going to shop and eat at chain stores, at chain diners, then they're the ones who are getting the money. Nevertheless, the local economy also gets money.
No, Tamanna, in Turkey's case, it's a little different because the Turkish lira has weakened to such an extent that the payment and the mode of payment is actually, many of the Turkish companies have now their accounts abroad, and the country, interestingly, has very freely repatriable, currency. So the money actually doesn't enter the Turkish economy. Not many people realize this. So that's a different story. But I also wanted to tell you that when I say there are other ways of handling Turkey, messaging is extremely important. We have to understand something. Turkey is not what we see. It is one man who has made all the difference. He had this, I'm going on a different tangent now, but you would appreciate why I'm telling you so. It is one man, Erdogan. I mean, he calls the shots in Turkey. And he has this grandiose dream of, getting back the caliphate glory and becoming the leader of the Islamic world. Now, not all others in Turkey, I mean, not the people of Turkey have this dream, and they do not have this anti-India bias. So I do not think anything that will alienate the Turkish people is a good idea. And so far as doing business, that is why I say we should have staggered, limited economic strikes. The idea is to convey our displeasure and our intent what we feel after what Turkey has done.
And then, if we are truly a growing economic power, then let's make that felt. So it becomes important. And of course, the sentiment of the Indian people. Thank you so much, Sanjay Panda. Thank you so much, Jyoti Mayal, for joining us today. And thank you to all of our viewers for joining us on The Big Question. We'll see you back again, same time, same place.